Good evening, and wow, the first cut is the deepest, and that is, of course, as you all know, a Cat Stevens classic, but the definitive version from 1967, a full decade before someone called Rod Stewart recorded it, and the singer, whom we're really honoured to have as our special guest tonight, is none other than London's First Lady of Soul, P.P Arnold. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Thank you.
And Pat is here to talk about, there's so much to talk about, her legendary career, her life, and her memoir, which is a really remarkable book. Soul Survivor, there are copies of it here, and Pat's very kindly agreed to sign those copies, so I can't recommend it highly enough. It's an engrossing read. Mark and I have been talking about it for weeks. It's just amazing. And that book tells us the story of at least the first decades of her career, although as we've been chatting about just now, there's more to come, I hope. I mean, it would be quicker, or it would be faster, to be honest. I'd say, first of all, I'm Matt Dancona. I'm a slightly overexcited editor at Tortoise. And it would be quicker, to be honest, for me to go through the great musical forces of the past half century that Pat hasn't collaborated with or known or been friends with. I mean, the list is amazing. It embraces the Ike Tina Turner Revue, the Stones, The Small Faces, Barry Gibb, Ocean Colour Scene, Primal Scream. You know, I could go on forever, and I won't. But it gives you an idea of not just her musical prowess, but the esteem in which she's held by her peers, and has been for a very, very long time. But her solo work is also the key to it all, which is sensational. And it goes from the First Lady of Immediate to Kafunta, which I didn't know until reading in the book, was a huge record in apartheid South Africa. And the most recent album, The New Adventures of P.P Arnold. So, as ever, we want to hear from you in the room and online. And P.P Arnold fanboy extraordinaire Mark St. Andrew over there will be overseeing the chat. So, Pat, well, thank you for coming. And let's start sort of not at the end, of course, but the most recent thing, which is there's a moment a few weeks ago, June 26th, Sunday, Avalon stage at Glastonbury. And you walk on and you open up with a cover of Sandy Denny's I'm a Dreamer. And you kill it, you smash it. What was that like? What was it like to be, and you've, as we'll talk about, this is a country you've had a long association with. And there you are at Glastonbury. What was it like?
Well, it was great. You know, it was my first solo Glastonbury. I had performed there with Roger Waters in the past, and you know, so it was my first. So it was like one of those things you want to tick off your bucket list, right? And I was really happy that I managed to make it there, because I had a bout with COVID a few weeks before, and I was, Lord, please, please. So I was really glad that I tested negative and everything. So I got there, and yeah, it was great. I think COVID said, let me leave that woman alone. Let me find somebody who's scared of me. You know? Because, I'm really into like alternative healing and regenerative nutrition and all of that stuff. So I just threw the kitchen sink at it. And so I managed to arrive at Glastonbury, and we were there, and, had lots of problems because the week before there was a train strike, and I had a new guitar player. We didn't get a chance to rehearse with him, but he was brilliant. He had really done his homework and knew all of his parts, and festivals are really kind of challenging because you don't get a chance to get a proper sound check. We had a 20-minute line check, and Yeah, and the on stage monitoring was like shit, really, because
Anyone who was wondering.
because you're working with an engineer who doesn't know your set, it doesn't know these things. But anyway, I've been doing this for quite some time. The show must go on, and we're really happy that the show went well. Had my loyal fans who are always there for me, and yeah, it was a good show, and I got some good reviews, and it was great, and I sang in tune, not like others, but I did my thing. Anyway,
I have no idea what you mean.
No, I don't either. I love her very much. I'm glad to.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. We won't mention any names.
No. I'm sure she loves you too.
Until today.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's rewind the tape almost 60 years to 1965. You're a teenage mum in an abusive marriage in Watts, and you're weighing up the future. Very young, not clear where things are going, and suddenly everything changes on a dime, doesn't it?
Well, everything changes with a prayer, basically. I was 17 years old in an abusive teen marriage. I had 2 children. I was working 2 jobs, and it was like a living hell, really. So on Sundays, that was the day that I did all my laundry and ironing and got everything ready for the week ahead. And I was in the laundry room, and I just said a prayer, and I asked God to show me a way out of the hell that I had created for myself. Took responsibility. And, I just went back in the house, and then about an hour later, I received a phone call from an ex-girlfriend of my brother's, who, with another girl, they wanted to be Ikeettes. So they had this audition, and the other girl, who was also an ex-girlfriend of my brother's, she didn't show up, Cookie. So they basically called me out of desperation. And say they wanted me to go with them. Maxine knew that I sang. I had no ambitions to sing professionally or anything like that. She knows me from church. And I hadn't really been going to church that much since, in those days, young teenage mothers weren't, I was like Hypocrite City, so I stopped going to church. And so anyway, I said, oh, no, I can't go. We're coming to get you. Bam. So next thing I know, they're at the door, and I lie, and I tell my husband I'm going shopping or something. And then an hour later, I'm in Ike Tina Turner's living room singing, dancing in the streets. So Tina goes, right, girls, you got the gig. And I go, oh, no, not me. Not me. I can't go. I got to go home. I'm going to be in big trouble. My husband, I should be home 2 hours ago. He doesn't know where I am. So Tina says, well, if you're going to get in trouble for nothing, why don't you ride up to Fresno with us? Fresno is 300 miles away, right? Why don't you ride up to Fresno and at least see the show? Well, I'm already under her spell. So whatever she wants me to do, I'm going to do it. And I never got a chance to do anything. I had blown all my teenage years, and I never did anything. So I thought, she's right. I'm going. So I go to Fresno, and I see Ike Tina Turner perform for the first time. It was like psychedelic, Tina Turner with the flicker light going off the stage doing the shag, like Charlie Chaplin movie. And so, wow, I was like this. And, I was all tacky. I had on the clothes I'd been cleaning house in with my little feather hair. We used to have these little feather hair nets. Looked like a feather afro, that you wore when you went shopping. You didn't wear this for auditions or going to clubs. So I was really tacky, and I was sitting back in the back just checking it all out, sipping on a Coca-Cola because I never drank before. And and then we were coming back, and I'm just like, all I'm thinking about is the trouble I'm getting ready to get into. And so, but Tina, they wanted me. I don't know what they wanted in me, I just didn't, I was just singing a little harmony. But I think what they liked was Maxine, Gloria, and I, we were like a younger set looking Ikettes. I think the other girls were more older and more sophisticated, and we were like the kind of personification of like Motown and all the go-go stuff we had, all the moves and everything. So they wanted me. So I got home and put my key in the door, and he was waiting for me. And it's like, bam! He fired on me. Boom. And it was like he knocked some sense into me because I remembered my prayer. That morning, I didn't have a way out. Suddenly, there was a way out. And suddenly, I knew I was going to take it. So, I got my kids up and got them ready for school and to go to my mother's, and I got ready to go to work. And the girl who would pick me up to take my kids, I told her I'm not going to work today. So I went to my mother's, and I just begged her because my mother knew what had happened because I didn't come home. So like everybody was worried about me and everything. So I just begged. So anyway, as you read, I could go on and on and on, but let's just go I became an Ikette. It was decided that I could be an Ikette, and my mother would look after my kids, and yeah.
So
that was the beginning.
This was your first shopping trip. You went out shopping. You go shopping and you become an Ikette.
That's right.
Doesn't normally happen to me when I go shopping, I have to say. But next, you're off to the. I mean, you work with the Ikettes as an Ikette, and then it's time to go to the UK and tour with the Stones. How is that? I mean, suddenly another thing. You're taking another leap.
Yeah, destiny is a weird thing, and it was like being in this industry. I'd never had an ambition to be in it. Then I've been on the road for a year and a half with Ike and Tina, and was just fortunate to be with them when Tina recorded River Deep Mountain High, which was a flop in the States. White stations wouldn't play it because it was too black, and the black stations wouldn't play it because it was too white, so it flopped. So we were lucky that it was a big smash hit in the UK. So one night we're at the Galaxy Club on Sunset Boulevard, and in walks Bill Wyman and Charlie Watts. And we're introduced to them, and it's the Rolling Stones. I didn't even know who the Rolling Stones were. I mean, I knew they had a song called Satisfaction, but I thought that it was Otis Redding's song and that the Stones were covering Otis Redding, Okay, so anyway, I found out that we were going to be going to England, London to tour with the Stones. And yeah, then I came, here we are.
Here we are. So you arrive, and it's amazing. It's an amazing experience. And as you say in the book, you have a relationship with Mick Jagger, but more importantly, he becomes a long-term friend. And I think it's fair to say someone who identified in you the talent that you have. Would that be a fair way of describing you and Mick?
Well, yeah, first we became friends because he used to make me laugh. There's this little skinny white boy, walking like a black man, talking like a black man, singing like a black man, and we just used to laugh at each other. He used to make me laugh, and they would be laughing at us. They'd be backstage watching us shake our butts and everything. So we were having fun. Suddenly we're in the UK. I come from we didn't come like, it was like right in the middle of the Civil Rights Revolution, you know, into the rock and roll revolution. So I've never like been a part of this whole integrated, cosmopolitan lifestyle that was happening in London. So for me, shy, inhibited, you know, Pat, suddenly I get to London, it's like, whoa, you know, it's like discotheques, London, mini skirts, you know, like the music, everything was happening. So I was just having fun, you know, and Mick and I were friends, and yeah, we kind of like graduated into a full-blown relationship, which was quite taboo for me at the time, because in those days, black girls didn't go out with white guys, you know, and like, just like they were, you know, it wouldn't be the thing to take a black girl home to meet their parents. It wasn't a good idea for me to bring a white guy home to meet mine either, you know, but that's the way it was. And we were like, it was like the music industry, it was music. And so, yeah, we became friends. And Mick, it was actually Ian Stewart, who was the Stones road manager, and Glenn Johns.
The great Stu.
Yes, Stu. Oh, he's so lovely. It was really Stu that put the B in Andrew Oldham's bonnet.
This was the Stones manager,
Andrew
right?
Oldham was the Stones manager, and he had just formed independent, one of the first independent record labels, Immediate Records. And Stu and Glenn had suggested to Andrew that he should check me out, because, you know, and I was hanging out with Mick, so Mick knew that I was really fed up. Ike was giving me a hard time when we were in England, because he was really pissed because I was hanging out with Mick. What are you doing hanging out with these white kids? You know, he was just giving me a hard time, fining me. Ike Turner would fine you for anything. He'd fine you if you had a run in your stocking. He'd fine you if you were 2 seconds late for rehearsal. And he was really giving me a hard time. And I was a bit fed up with Ike. I was fed up with the way Ike was treating me. And I was really fed up with watching what Tina had to go through, because Tina had saved me from an abusive marriage, and to being with them and watching, I mean, it was really hard for me to watch what she was going through. Sorry.
No,
A long time ago, you know, like these things, you know, like my book is like I was saying to you, my book, all of these things, I'm just sort of like telling people about these things, and I never had any therapy to get through any of this. So like I'm going through therapy out here with you guys, you know, I'm telling everybody what's going on here. So yeah, it was very difficult. So I had said to Mick that I was gonna leave. So, you know, I think Andrew and everybody got Mick to proposition me and ask me to stay in the UK, and if I stayed, Mick would produce part of the album, Andrew would produce the other part, and yeah, so I called my mother, because, you know, there's no way I could stay unless I had the support of my mother looking after my kids. And so my mother said, well, okay, well, yeah, you know, because by that time they were like really supporting me as a singer. I mean, I didn't know I was an artist or anything, but, you know, I'd done okay. I'd got out of the marriage, and I was looking after my kids. I was getting on my feet. And so Mama said, like, you know, like, okay, I'm gonna check it out. If it doesn't work out, I'm gonna come home in 6 months. Because Mick said it would take like 6 months, you know, to make the record and everything. So I said, okay, so if it didn't work out, I'd come home. And if it did work out, I was gonna go home and get my kids. Because I was like one of those girls that had said that, when I had my kids, that I would never just dump my kids on my parents and go out, And I hadn't thought about how hard it was going to be, bringing my kids 6,000 miles from home, from my family. But we did it, and it was like really, it was quite revolutionary and everything. And my kids actually ended up saving me. Heaven forbid what would happen if I had just been on my own throughout the, rock and roll. I mean, this is serious. I was hanging out with the Rolling Stones now, this is like, it was like a time of like really sort of like, rock and roll, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So,
so I want to ask you then a now question, which is a hard one, which is that we know there's a fantastically courageous and extraordinary passage in the book where you talk about Ike assaulting you horrifically. And we know also from Tina Turner's work since that the same thing happened to her. I think it's clear you had strong suspicions, but you weren't absolutely sure. Now, let's go to 2022, 5 years since the Me Too movement. Do you think the people who are coming up, the young women who are coming up through the industry today are better protected from that kind of predatory behavior and have genuine safeguards around them to stop that stuff happening?
Well, it's really hard to stop stuff like that happening when it's happening to you.
Of course.
And when you're young, I mean, I was like a young woman, even though I was married and I had 2 kids. I knew nothing about the world. I had thought that Ike and Tina would be protecting me. That was the deal, that I would, go on the road with them and they would look after me and everything. So, yeah, so I didn't really know what to do when that happened to me. It all happened so fast. You're going, no, and then it's happening. And then, in my situation, it was really horrible. So you can have to read about that in the book. I don't really want to talk about it, but it was awful. And so the same thing with a young girl today. If you're put in a situation like that, it all happens so fast. You're either really strong and you're prepared to I think maybe girls are, you would think that there's more, they're stronger, but in situations like that, it's very difficult to say, look what's happening. Women, the fear of just going out and just walking the streets these days, you never know what's gonna happen. So yeah, it's a difficult thing for a young girl, because young girls, I mean, even before Ike, when I first got pregnant, I didn't ditch school to go have sex. The guy that became my husband was he was just on me all the time about putting out, and it was he was older than me. So I really look back now and I realize that I was being groomed, and I loved school. I was an honor roll student. So I thought, okay, all right, let me get him off my case, because I like to kiss. I like to kiss and I like the little cuddling and stuff, So I thought, well, I'll ditch my music appreciation class. I won't even ditch a whole day. I'll just ditch the one music appreciation class. And, you go and then you end up and you're kissing, and next thing you know, you've been jumped on, and then it's over. And you're going no, you've been saying no, but then it's over. And then, I'll never do that again. But it was too late. I was a young girl, fertile, pregnant, boom. So it's difficult to know, when those things happen, even with young girls now, the other thing that keeps coming up, as well as the whole Me Too culture, the whole thing, talking about abortion now and things like that. And I've had some abortion experiences that I'm not proud of. I'm not happy about. And if I had the same consciousness then as a little girl as I had now. Well, I probably wouldn't even been in the situations that I was into. But I still think it's a woman's right to choose what she wants to do with her body. And that's a serious, serious thing. You know, you have repercussions from that. I've done a lot of work dealing with things like that. I've worked with shamans, and yeah, I've done a lot of spiritual work because I've actually had experiences where I've had visitations from aborted children. You know, that's how sensitive, you know, I am. So, you know, it's difficult. When you're young, you know, you're a young girl and you're like infatuated. Oh, he's so cute. It's all about cute. You're going out with people. You don't know anything about them. You don't know anything about their family, where they come from. Yeah.
No, it's a huge issue.
Yeah.
And it's probably always will be to some extent. Yeah,
well,
so
hopefully
not, but
sharing what I'm going
no, exactly.
through. I mean,
it
that's
helps.
why when I wrote my book, I had I'm a big Maya Angelou fan, and I had read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and when I read that, I realized if when I was writing my book, is that I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to tell the truth. You know, warts and all. You know, what's the use of writing my story, sharing my life, if I'm not going to tell the truth? You know, I've never like been into this for celebrity. I like to think of myself more like a healer, really. That's my other passion. If I wasn't singing, you know, I'd be healing. I'm a Reiki master. I'm into healing. My whole reason for singing is to inspire and uplift. I don't open my mouth to sing. And Tony will tell you, this is my drummer. You know, we pray. Yeah. Tony Coote, you know, I don't go on stage without prayer and asking God to shine his light in, through, and all around us, so that we touch the hearts and souls of everybody in that venue, whether it's like a big stadium where you're reaching people with Roger Waters, you know, 100,000s of people, or you're in a room with 50 people. It's all the same. So that's, yeah.
So there's another, one of the things I think people will really enjoy in the book is that you deal a lot with your ancestry. And there's a very interesting structural thing where you'll discuss a part of your career, and then there'll be a chapter about your family history. Can you talk about that a bit? Because it really enriches the book, I think, and it also gives a great idea of America and the place of your history within that sort of that chronology.
Yeah, you know, when I was glad I was working with the editor, Mark Sinker. He saw that, and I felt that. I didn't want it to be just a chronological thing, and the way he put it together was just like perfect. It starts with that mysterious ways, that first chapter of how I get connected with Ike and Tina Turner, and then it goes back to the Coles and the Hawkins. That's my father's side of the family, and when I first started writing the book, I lost it making a copy from Time Machine to a portable disc. And so I had to start all over, you know. And I had some notes, but, you know, thank God it was my life, or I would have been in big trouble, right? So, and then I thought, well, everybody, you know, thinks of me of soul, first lady of soul. I'm a soul singer. I started singing it's gospel, you know. So I thought, I think it might be a good idea to take this back to the plantation where the music comes from, you know, and talk a little bit about the Underground Railroad, where these hymns and sort of like what what is the meaning behind some of these hymns that we sing in church, you know? Like these hymns were used to like be guidelines to help slaves escape, you know, slavery. And so yeah, I wanted to take it back there. I did ancestry work and learned about my great-great-grandpa Mouser Hawkins, who I had never knew anything about. I don't even know if my parents knew anything about them. They never mentioned them to me. But, you know, I'm so glad that I did that because I can now pass that down to my children, my grandchildren, my nieces and nephews. And I was speaking to a niece just the other night, and she said, Aunt Pat, you know, she said, I was like asking my daddy about if he knew anything about our, you know, ancestry. I said, don't worry about it, baby, I got it covered. You know what I mean? So yeah, she was really glad to hear. And I think my brothers and sisters are gonna be, they're gonna really be blown away that I've done that, because I did it, the Coles and the Hawkins, and then I did it with the Grays and the Benjamins, which is my mother's side. And so, but the book goes, it like, so it goes like the Coles and the Hawkins, and then it goes back to me becoming an Ikeette. And in Ike Tina Turner's living room, learning all those routines, you know, and, you know, and I try to describe them and, you know, so that you can kind of feel what it was like. You can kind of see those routines, see us doing that. And then it goes back to some more ancestry, then it goes back. And so like you're going from the music. So if you get really kind of fed up about hearing about my ancestry, then boom, I'll take you back to some music, you know, to some modern day. So yeah, it was a great, I really like.
Yeah, I love that aspect of the book.
That
and then you're P.P Arnold and the Night. Yeah. A great name for a band. And but you say about that period, it's interesting about the weirdness and the magic of what's going on. I was becoming a revolutionary icon without ever even thinking of myself as being revolutionary. So how did you? What were the things that kind of tipped you off to that? How do you make that realization?
Probably only just made it recently. I didn't make that. You know, I didn't know. Nobody knew. We didn't know what was going to happen with that music, that it was going to be like 50 years later. You know, I only made 3 albums in my whole career, you know, because of the way things like went in my career. I didn't have, you know, basically in my earlier career, I never really I wasn't looked after properly, basically. That's kind of what happened. And I didn't know anything, and I didn't know about the industry or anything. So it was kind of like on-the-job training with me, and it took a lot of years for me to like really find my way in the industry. So yeah, I didn't really know what was happening. Nobody knew, really. Everybody got ripped off in the 60s. You know, even the Stones and the Beatles got ripped off. Everybody got ripped off. And I always think that whoever survived the 70s, like the artists who survived the 70s after everything changed and the drug culture got so heavy, and everybody that survived that, you know, like Pink Floyd and, you know, the Stones and everybody, all the higher echelon of the industry, you know, they're the ones that are still happening now, you know, whereas for me, the whole 70s were the lost years. I was lost. I didn't know where I was. Then I dealt with a lot of...
Before that, though, you had a collaboration with Barry Gibb, and 3 tracks in particular stick out. Bury Me Down by the River, Give Me a Hand, Take a Hand, Let There Be Love. I mean, 3 just stone cold classics. Yeah. So there was just awesome tracks, all timers. So what was that like when you realized with, you know, someone who was obviously had his own thing going, but also you and he obviously had a serious musical connection?
Barry and I had a friendship. First, Jim Morris, who was my boyfriend, who later became my husband, worked with Robert Stigwood, the Bee Gees manager. So he and Barry were really close friends. And so Barry had recorded, he had originally wrote To Love Somebody for Otis Redding. And then Otis Redding was killed in the plane crash. And so the Bee Gees recorded it. And I did one of the early covers of To Love Somebody. And Barry really liked my version that I did. So when he found out that I was going out with Jim, he wanted to meet me. So I met him, and we were kind of both at a crossroads. I was lost because Immediate had folded. And everybody had scattered. My sort of like musical family was gone. Barry was like, he was at odds with his brothers. They had split up. The family had split up. He was trying to work out where he was going. And we just became friends. And his partner, he had just connected with Linda, and he and Linda, they were like, dealing with their personal problems while Barry was trying to work out his professional, and Jim and I. So we became friends, and so we used to just hang out. And that guy is just like so creative. I mean, songs just run through him like a river, and he just started writing all these songs for me. And and he had a really clever idea of how to get it all going, and because he was at odds with Robert, but Polydor was also in America. It was Atlantic Records. So Ahmet Ertegun had come over to England, and Barry had this plan, right? So he invited Ahmet to a dinner party with Stigwood.
This is Ahmet Ertegun, who was what?
Ahmet Ertegun, head of Atlantic Records, Aretha Franklin land. Aretha is my whoa, soul inspiration. And so, so we had dinner, and Barry pulled out the guitar, and Robert was not happy about this, right? So Barry and we did like a little short impromptu acoustic session. And, Ahmet goes, Stiggy, you haven't, signed up this girl? And Robert's going, yes, we're working on the contracts now, So, sure enough, he sent me the contracts next day, signed me to RSO. Without an advance, no advance.
Still a good move by
it was a great move because for me, I was going to have this opportunity to go. I actually went to America, to promote Bury Me Down by the River because they really liked that track. And it was a beautiful track, Bury Me Down by the River, but I don't know. I learned from that track to when you're singing a song, make sure what you put out in the ether is positive because, it's like I sung the shit out of Bury Me Down by the River. It's like, and then nothing happened for a long time after that. So I try not to sing songs that kind of bury me anymore. But it was, it's a great track, and the B-side of that, Give a Hand, Take a Hand, wonderful, Humanity, Let There Be Love, beautiful ballads. And the other one, The Turning Tide, I love that as well. That's another beautiful. But anyway, Robert didn't want that to happen. The tracks all the recordings got stopped, and they were put on the shelf, and that was it. And sadly. But
then
I didn't let it rest.
No, you certainly didn't.
No, I didn't. I fought for many years, and finally in 2017, those recordings were released on an album The Turning Tide.
This is a classic.
Also with the Eric Clapton productions on them as well. Yeah, because Robert had like even though he got rid of me with the Bee Gees, got me out of the way there. He put me on tour with Eric Clapton, and Eric was on tour with Delaney and Bonnie and Friends, with George Harrison and Billy Preston, and I was the opening act for that tour. So I put a band together. Steve Howe from Yes was my guitar player, and a rhythm section, Ashton Gardner and Dyke, and some great singers, Leslie Duncan and Kay Garner. Sadly, those people are no longer with us. Everybody's passed away. So it was a really special time. And then afterwards, after that tour, Robert put me in the studio with Eric. And so Eric, we did some covers. We did the Van Morrison cover of Brand New Day, which is very beautiful. I love that. I love all those tracks. We did a version of You Can't Always Get What You Want, the Stones song. And then we also did a cover of the Traffic's Medicated Goo.
We love that here.
There was a whole bunch of Medicated Goo going on in that session, that's for sure.
We love that song.
So anyway, the tracks were great, but Robert just stopped those sessions and they just went next to the Barry Gibb tracks on the shelf.
Well, I don't know how to put this politely, so I can't. He's not here and you are, so thank God for that.
Yeah, well, it's really funny because I moved to Spain, and I received an invitation from Robert, before he passed away, to some kind of special event, but I was in Spain and I didn't go, and I think maybe he was trying to
reach out or
reach out and apologize, because I really personally think that if that music at that time, because that was my next development after Immediate Records, it could have changed my whole, the history would be totally different. But, everything, that wasn't my destiny at that time. They weren't supposed, whatever, I don't know, I guess karma or whatever. And I was just searching, so I was a bit lost.
Before I've got millions more questions here, but I want to just ask one more before giving people in the room a chance to talk to you, Pat. Scrolling forward again, you've one of the things that's so extraordinary about you is you've just remained constantly in touch with the pulse of music. So you've recorded with Ocean Colour Scene, and one of my favourites is your version of the Small Faces Understanding with the mighty Primal Scream, right? 1996. Now, talk us through what it's like to do a recording in 1996 with Primal Scream, who I imagine at that stage were, drinking a fair bit, doing a fair bit.
Fun. Let me tell you.
Bobby Gillespie and the full Bobby Gillespie, yeah.
But once they had a few drinks, I couldn't understand a word.
I was going to say, there must
be But we recorded a great track.
That's a great track. It's a
track.
It's a banger. It's fantastic. But how are you obviously you have a positive curiosity to stay, interested in new music. What's going on?
I like collaborating.
Yeah.
I like doing things that I've never done before. So I'm always testing myself. I'm always open to new ideas, and so I love singing. And if it's a message, something positive, that's a great tune. Steve Marriott, it's great. It's just big fun. So yeah, that's what I do as well. And that's really helped me to survive through really hard times in my career. Every decade, I've been blessed to connect with the younger artists, find out about my music, and then they want to work with me, and I do things, and I try different things, and it kind of keeps my vibe alive.
That's phenomenal. Guys, who'd like to? Yeah, lots of people. So if you just wait for a microphone. Yeah. Say who you are as well.
Hello, my name is Yelena. It was lovely to hear you speak. It was really, really interesting. I'm particularly interested in what you said about being drawn to Mick Jagger, because you said he kind of strutted and sang and behaved like a black person. And I think what you were saying about going back and discovering the religious origins of so much of our popular music is starting to resonate more in culture now. I recently went to see the new Elvis film, which intersperses a lot of film.
I heard it's amazing.
I think it does a really good job, I think, of interspersing a lot of shots of actually the origins of that music. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, whether you think we're coming to a moment where we are starting to reckon more with where things like our music come from and having those difficult conversations.
Well, I think it's really important. I think that's why I wrote about it in my book, you know. I think the more you really get to know, and like I hear that Elvis film is great. I really want to see it. Yeah, you have to know. It's like, I feel like people want, you know, I've been in the UK. My career took place in the UK more than in America. You know, people in America don't really know who I am, you know. But so, like, that's why I wrote my book like I did, because I want everybody to know who P.P Arnold really is. Patricia Ann Cole. You know, where did she come from? This music, this soul, this vibe that everybody wants to be a part of, you know, this authenticity, you know, I wanted them to know where it came from, because it's just like a natural thing. It's not an ego trip or anything like that, you know, it's just like a blessing, you know, and so I understand that the Elvis movie really gets into where the roots of how he got that, because my father was a big Elvis fan, and he's like, you know, he's got the long waist like Elvis, and the swivel hips and everything. So we used to go to any Elvis film, you know, we were at the drive-in movie watching Elvis films. Well, we were watching the teenagers necking, you know, as well, you know, but yeah, you know, all those moves. Elvis got those moves from like from the black community. You know, it was good. You know, like when I came here, people singing the blues. You know, like you know, like, hey, my generation thought that the blues was the old folks' music. You know, when we went to my mother's parties and everything, and the blues, you know, we'd be laughing at them, because we were really into Motown and all of that. And then I came here, and of course I knew about the blues, but not as the in-depth education that I got from being here, hanging out with the Rolling Stones and people like Alexis Corner, you know, and all of that, you know. So, yeah, it's really important, and I hope that I can share that, what I know. You know, I'm still learning about different things, but yeah, all that thing. And like Mick, I saw the documentary that the other night, and they used some of the funny, silly stuff I was saying in there. But I noticed in that documentary that they showed a lot of like the, you know, the clubs, the blues clubs and everything, how I move. And I realized, I know where Mick got a lot of his moves from, but I realized that Mick got his moves from black women. Yeah, you know, like his moves and the way he moves. And I was watching those documentaries, I got like, I know what you were listening to, what you were watching, but it is the love of the music that, you know, when you really love something and you're in it and you take the time to learn. Wow, I was really impressed. I was talking about that with Tony as well, you know, because I've come through, and like my sound is like not a normal, it's not like American R&B, you know. I'm like more of like a real soul singer, gospel soul, kind of old school really. And I remember going back to America in the 70s to try to do things, and everybody was like trying to sound like Chaka Khan, you know. Chaka Khan had all the riffs, and everybody, you know, I called it like the hot lick syndrome, you know. And I thought that I was square. I started doubting what I was doing as an artist, because I was thinking that, you know, my family, my brothers and sisters didn't think my music was black enough, you know. Because I had a different, and then I realized, I came back and I started listening to my music, and I realized, hey, I got my own sound. I don't sound like anybody. And like all the music that we do, like I have people sometimes playing with me. Recently I had someone playing with me. Great musician, you know, I mean, great, cool, badass, you know, but don't really have an understanding of that period, that 60s, that mod, that soul, that northern soul thing that I bring to the table. Just because I'm black doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be, you know, and it's fun. And when I toured with Steve Craddock in 2019, and we did the New Adventures tour, and I just think that that is the best live tour. Well, before that, we were like rocking it on the Turning Tide as well, you know. But when Steve did, it was just the love. When you see those videos of us playing together, everybody really loves that music. So it's just a whole nother vibe. So you gotta love it, and that's what, you know, like Elvis, the Stones, and all. I mean, you know, those guys had time to like really study that music and got into it, and, you know, like, whoa, you know, they were in it, you know, so you have to like, you know, yeah,
Mark.
Respect.
Here's my fanboy number one.
So I was following on from Matt's question earlier about moving from one type of music to another, and I'm quite interested in how you ended up recording like some of the more like heavier club things in the late 80s and early 90s, like the Beatmasters and the KLF. And I imagine working with the KLF was probably a bit strange.
Yeah, the strangest thing about working with the KLF is that they haven't paid me my money.
They tend to burn it.
Yeah, they burnt some money, and then they didn't, you know, anyway, that's neither here nor there. But in answer to your question, it was just great. I sort of met the Beatmasters. I was in a really terrible accident myself in the mid-'80s, and I was crushed between two cars, and both of my vastus lataris muscles were split. So I was told that I would never dance again. I was a long-distance runner. I'd never run. They just wanted to pump me full of steroids and put me on the heap. And so I just said, thank you, but no thank you. I'll do it myself. So like I came back, and it was during a healing period that I was going through. I used to go to Hampstead Heath every morning, and I got this special tree up there. It's a woman. I tell you, she got big boobs. Yeah, and she's surrounded by all these other, just very special tree. I used to go up there and hug that tree and just start running. You know, like got my energy back and everything. So, what was the question?
Beatmasters.
Oh yeah, the Beatmasters, right? Yeah, with the Beatmasters, right?
Things get heavy.
So I couldn't really perform or work during that period. So a friend of mine connected me with some jingle producers. And so I started doing all of these jingles. I was able to survive and take care of my family I had a whole lot of jingle campaigns that did really well. And so I met the Beatmasters. They were jingle producers. And so I was writing songs with the keyboard player, Richard Walmsley. And Richard started telling me about house music. You know, what I think about house music. Yeah, house music, you know. I'm old school. I don't know house music. I did a house party, yeah, but I wasn't sure about the house music. And so he played me some stuff and he said, well, we're going to do this record. And so what do you think about doing the track with me? I go like, yeah, is it funky? You know, right? And he goes like, yeah. And so like, it was great. It was a really good experience. Burn it up. Yeah, you know, and they were like, you know, I was really getting into the whole group. So that was another thing. That was a fun, that was something new, being introduced to a whole, it was really quite old. I didn't know about it. I didn't know about all that Chicago kind of sound because, you know, I had been out of the loop for a long time, really. After I lost my daughter, I was out of the loop for a while. I didn't know what was happening. So that period, I was getting back, and I was just coming back. I'd had my accidents. Anyway.
You seem to pick it up pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, it's music, isn't it? It's fun, you know what I mean? And with the Beatmasters, it was great because they invited me to be a part of the whole creative part of it as well. So we all worked together and wrote the song together. And we were first calling it Funky House, because that's what I said to Richard, is it funky? You know, we got like Funky House. But then we got, you know, it turned into Burn It Up. And yeah, and then the KLF, you know, those guys came and picked me up in their police car one day and took me out to Dagenham. They were recording out there. And, you know, and I took my friend Katie Kassoon. Do you know Katie Kassoon? Katie Kassoon, oh, she's fabulous. She's worked with everybody, Van Morrison and Eric Clapton, and we did Roger Waters together and everything. And so she's a great singer. And she used to be, I think in the 70s, Mac and Katie Kassoon. I don't know, did anybody remember them? Anyway, so she's a great singer. So we went there, and we are the Moo Moo Choir. Okay? The Moo Moo Choir is P.P Arnold and Katie Kassoon. We tracked that stuff, tracked it up, and we are the Moo Moo Choir. So, okay, we're doing this session. So I'm going like, well, okay, well, the Moo Moo Choir, okay, that's a little backing, you know, we give you that, you know. But if you use anything of my vocal solo, if you're using my sound in any way, you know, give me 5%, something.
Yeah.
So they drove me back home in the police car. I invited them in, cup of tea. Let's sign this little paper over here, 5%. Okay, anyway, so that's history. But, you know, like it was that's it. People give you like some space, and you know, KLF, KLF. Okay, so and then they're gonna say to
That's
me
worth
that
more than 5%.
you know what I mean?
And it's worth more than 5%.
You know, it's the bloody hook.
That's how it begins. That's how.
The hook.
I don't mean to get animated, but that is why everyone rushes onto the dance floor when it comes on.
That is the hook, and the other part is E-I-E-I-O. E-I. I mean, come on. Okay, so anyway, so yeah, so it's just like that, you know, like you go in the studio and that's what you do. Whereas, like when Roger Waters, I did Perfect Sense with Roger Waters. It was special, you know. Roger gave me the lyric and he gave me a space, and you know, and he knows I'm gonna give it. You know what I mean? Because for me, it's all about expression. It's all about expression. It's all about diction. You know, I want everybody to understand the lyric, and you know, it's this old school thing.
I knew I would. I've already overrun the hour. Just a very quick.
Thank you, Annabelle, it's fantastic to meet you. I just wanted to ask whether there was a conscious moment when you went in your mind from singer to artist, and as a result of that transition, whether that opened up a creative channel for all the collaborations that you've had, which have been enormous since that time.
Well, in answer to that question, I have a big bag of songs, right, that I've been writing since the 70s, really, because that's when I came into after I went through all the tragedy and everything. That's when I really started searching for my creativity. But nobody really encouraged me to be a songwriter. Say, like, when I first started writing songs, the first songs on the First Lady album that I did with Mick, Mick was there, he goes like, you got to write some songs, okay? And so, like, I didn't know, I'd never written any songs, but and because I didn't play an instrument, I didn't think I was a musician, and then I realized, hey, it's all about melody. I hear melody all day long, so that's what it is. And so, like, I started writing a lot then, but I've only really, to be perfectly honest, coming into my creativity and everything, it's kind of like a recent kind of happening. I would say over the last, what year is it? 2022, 2008, after Roger. Yeah, about the last 10 years, more, since around 2008. Because I started, like, recording and doing things, writing songs with Tony Remy and loads of people. Chaz Jankel and we've got some great stuff that's going to be coming out on a new box set that's being released next year. It's going to be like a 5 LP, vinyl box set with lots of songs that and a lot of unreleased
we're ordering
recordings.
It already.
Yeah. So yeah, recently I've been confident about my creativity, and like I'm really excited about going back in the studio again, and doing some stuff now, because during lockdown I was in Spain, so I was working with my with a drummer and a keyboard player in Bristol. My engineer was in Scotland. Bass player was in London with vocalists in London, and we were doing like the whole remote. And I had like been digging in my bag of songs, and I did a lot of work during lockdown. So there's a lot of things that need to be recorded and developed more, and I love it.
I knew I'd let it run too long, but I'm so glad I did. I'm not remotely sorry. 3 very quick things to say. Those in the room, hang out, because we'd love you to get the books, and also there are goodies to be awarded by lottery. Second thing, we knew that you were going to be brilliant, but. It's interesting. I spoke to 2 contenders in the Conservative leadership race today, and but I was really nervous about this, because it's not every day you get to speak to a legend.
Let me say something.
So wait a minute. So just let me finish.
Legend.
I have a feeling you are just getting started, and we're very grateful to you for coming and sharing the first half of your career with us. And come again. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.